Formula 1 has been seeing some big, new and exciting races being added to the Formula 1 calendar each year. Singapore was added in 2008, and since then there have been some big races added, such as the Yas Marina Circuit for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix in 2009, revisit in the United States but in the form of the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas in 2012. We saw Sochi being added in 2014, Mexico, obviously the big one from this year, which is Paul Ricard, Baku. And we've got a new contender for April of 2020. There's no rumours about this though, guys. There's no being should we have it, should we not, and a big debate about it. It's going to happen in 2020, so not next year but the year after. And that is another race in Asia, on the southeast of Asia, in the beautiful country of Vietnam. In the capital of Hanoi, we're going to have a race. 5.5 kilometres is the street circuit around the capital city of Vietnam. And obviously, they've never seen a Formula 1 race before. We've had some big races in Asia, as I've said, obviously the Chinese Grand Prix, the Japanese Grand Prix, Suzuka, obviously very, very famous. Singapore, and obviously a race that was on the calendar from last year, obviously being taken off, which is Malaysia and Sepang. So obviously people from Vietnam might have gone to watch those races, but now they're obviously going to see one in their home country. Obviously really, really exciting, and the track layout actually looks pretty good. Obviously there's some photos that have been around on the Formula 1 site. I think we might have shared one on our page on Facebook. 5.5 kilometres with 19 corners, as I say, around the busy streets of Vietnam. A bit like a Singapore, a bit like a Baku, but obviously we're going to see very exciting. It's a daylight race at the moment. Obviously that might change, but at the moment it's daylight. So it's set to take place in April, so obviously around just before the Monaco Grand Prix, around round 5 or 6 or something like that. Obviously we'll get into more detail about where it might be on the calendar and what race it might take the place of, obviously later on in the episode. But it looks a really good track, 19 corners, and actually this track, this layout, takes inspiration from some of the corners that we have on the Formula 1 grid at the moment. Obviously street circuits, so they can't really bend too much around on the circuit, but it looks really, really good from what they've got. So obviously as we head in, so Sector 3 obviously has a big point that matches up with the Circuit of the Americas / the Mexican Grand Prix circuit of the S's, obviously, which looks really, really good. But the big thing that's catching everyone's attention is the 800 metre straight, obviously in the braking zone, which goes down at 335 kilometres, a Chinese / Baku-like straight, which is basically going to be absolutely amazing. You're going to see the cars absolutely flying into that corner. So that looks in it as a sort of a stadium section like we see in Mexico and Germany. So obviously that looks really, really good. And again, Vietnam, the track just looks like it's taking some big inspiration from other races. Obviously it's going to be a good addition to the Formula 1 calendar, and it looks really, really exciting. As I say, another race in Southeast Asia, in Asia, and obviously for the Vietnamese people coming out from China, wherever you are in Asia, it's going to be a really, really good addition. So obviously in this episode we're going to talk about, why it's such a good idea, and then also where it would fit in on the calendar, and then also what race it actually might replace in the Formula 1 grid, because obviously now we're at the point where we're getting absolutely loads of races being added. Obviously big rumours. Obviously we still have the Miami Grand Prix still circling around in the Formula 1 paddock. But obviously now we have 21 races. Obviously we can't have any more. Obviously Formula 1 is absolutely chock-a-block with all the races. So obviously what race would step out for Vietnam to come in? Now obviously as a rendition into the race, obviously it's really, really great. It'll basically boost the tourism in Vietnam, obviously getting a lot more people to visit. Obviously we're not anything into geography, but obviously that would be great for the community, that would be great for the council, things like that. But Formula 1 obviously would be really good. It's just another place to visit, and obviously, yeah, I'll say another Asian race. Obviously what a great place, what a great, it's great to, kind of support the community and things like that, yeah, and what a great event to have on. But obviously at the moment, obviously we're sitting at 22 races with the addition of that. And obviously what race would be taken out for Vietnam to be added in? But obviously at this track, what's being shared at the moment looks really, really good. Obviously set to take place in April, I'll say around 6 or around 7, and yeah, it's just going to be a really, really good race, and I'm really excited to see what will actually happen here. So Jordan, obviously new event, obviously new race in Asia. Obviously this a new street circuit as well. Obviously we've seen a lot of street circuits being added. Obviously Singapore, obviously really, really old. Singapore obviously is one of the oldest new races, if that makes sense. Obviously we've seen some street circuits that have been added. Obviously as actual race tracks such as Canada and Sochi. But obviously, yeah, a new street circuit. Obviously, normal cars will be driving on until 2020, and obviously all the Formula 1 cars will be there revving up their engines, and it's just so exciting, isn't it, to see a new race in Formula 1.
I do like seeing new races being added into Formula 1 as well. Obviously, well, there's been fans since well, I would say really big fans since 2010. We have seen our fair share of new races come and go. For that matter, obviously, likes of India and South Korea, who did come in Formula One, who were there for about 2 or 3 years, then obviously went off the calendar. Which we have seen races stick, like for example, like Lyle said, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, the American Grand Prix, sorry, the US Grand Prix. I keep saying American Grand Prix, and obviously the Russian Grand Prix as well, and obviously now the Mexican Grand Prix, which is coming back as well. So obviously we have seen our fair share of races come and go. But coming to Vietnam, it's somewhere where obviously Formula One has never been before. Yes, we have been to Asia, but not like obviously not whereabouts Vietnam, as like Lyle said, on the south side of Asia. So coming in there, we're all in very unknown territory, because obviously no one really from Vietnam has competed in Formula One. Fans probably do fly over to China or maybe even Japan. Obviously races close there, and obviously Malaysia is not too far away from there. People would have probably flown to there, but obviously Malaysia isn't here anymore. So I think going to Vietnam, for the people who do follow Formula One in Vietnam, very, very good for them. Very, very, obviously, hopefully get that Formula One community up again. For those who used to go to the Mexican Grand Prix who now can't, will now hopefully have their own Grand Prix. But as I said before, probably one of the biggest things that they are doing with going to Vietnam is risk, because as I said before, me and Lyle have, and obviously you guys as well, have seen our fair share of races come and go. The Indian Grand Prix, there was loads of hype and money pumped into that race, and it was only there for 3 seasons, and Sebastian Vettel won all of them. Same with South Korea as well. You know, that race came, it was supposed to be the next big thing in Korea, and then all of a sudden it's gone. It didn't really work out. So obviously this could be like another kind of 2 or 3 year race, even though they have said a multi-year deal, but obviously they can pull out of that at any given point. Obviously it will cost them quite a bit of dollar, I would say, but it just depends how everything goes. And obviously it has come in quite I would probably say a controversial time, because Formula One right now was like Lyle was saying, was in a bit of a melee as to how many races is going to be on the calendar. At present, we do have about in between 20 to 23 races, roughly, if you include like some races that are proposed, maybe some that may not be here. So obviously, the 2019 calendar is obviously being released. There is no change from this season into next season, but obviously in 2020 there could be a lot of change, because there are 3 races currently three races who are not contracted in 2020, which is Britain, Germany, and Brazil. So obviously, but they're like at the latter stage of the season now. Vietnam is scheduled for April 2020, which is probably going to be the flyaway events, probably the first 4 or 5 rounds. That would be that's where the Vietnam Grand Prix would obviously sit. Probably start the season there. But one of the races that I flagged up immediately when I heard this was Baku. That possibility that Baku Grand Prix, or the Azerbaijan Grand Prix rather, could be removed from the calendar altogether. Now, I heard this rumour shortly after the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in 2018. And I was quite surprised at this, because I thought the track itself, obviously 2016's race was just dull. It was rubbish. 2017 and 2018 was absolutely brilliant. It produced some of the best races that we've seen from this generation of cars. It got Race of the Year in 2017, and it'll be up there in 2018 when we come to vote. Obviously, when whoever votes for Race of the Season, with obviously two races to go, Brazil being this weekend. So obviously, I have heard that. Obviously, yes, that Azerbaijan could potentially be dropped. Now, this would make sense for them Vietnam to take that place, and for Vietnam to have a go at possibly, boosting Formula One fans from that area, because I think I've seen Baku's fans, Azerbaijan's fans rather, that the ticket sales aren't really that good. I've seen the grandstands where they're empty from about with about 15-20 minutes to go before lights out. They have improved since then, but it hasn't really. It probably hasn't worked as good as what people thought it was going to work. As like I said before about races like India and stuff, it just hasn't really done anything. Yes, the racing's been brilliant, but obviously that's not enough to keep a race like that on the calendar. It's all about revenue, sponsorship as well, obviously ticket sales as well. The money from that obviously goes into Formula One to make it to hopefully make it a better sport. And obviously, if a race isn't producing that, it's not going to be on the calendar. So obviously, Baku could potentially be dropped. But when I was reading about this, obviously looking at the facts about where it could be dropped, Baku wasn't actually mentioned. So Baku could actually be safe for another couple of years at least. So there could be 5 flyaway events at the start of the season. But obviously, as I did say before, the British Grand Prix is obviously a big one that could potentially be dropped from 2020 should they not find a new home rather, other than Silverstone, because obviously in 2019 Silverstone could potentially host the final ever British Grand Prix. Now, a Formula 1 series without a British Grand Prix, it shouldn't even be raised at the moment, because there's been one every single year since the very first race back in 1950. So to not have a British Grand Prix, it's just barbaric. So if that does go, then it could swap around with another race. Baku could be dropped back to the midfield. They could the midfield part of the season. Germany as well, that's coming and going a lot of the time. Obviously, it's got a contract for 2019, but none for 2020. Again, that could be potentially replaced. But Brazil, on the other hand, now coming into the Brazilian Grand Prix, I did hear that Brazil is one of the most polluted countries in the world, and Formula 1 going over there is a big controversial topic for those tree huggers out there who want to save the planet. Exactly. So obviously Brazil being dropped as well does sound realistic as well, in that sense of obviously with it being quite polluted country, as I just said. So that would make more sense. And obviously, again, it is a popular track, but obviously money-wise, it just isn't working out. So again, they could chop and change the calendar, but obviously this is just guesswork at the moment, isn't it, guys? So obviously we don't know what the calendar's going to look like in 2020. You know, anything could happen between them. They could chop and change the races from one race to the next. So obviously, there's a lot of questions still being raised on this, but overall, it looks absolutely brilliant. I do like the look of the circuit as well. I think going to Vietnam is I think it is good for Formula 1. I am a fan of this. I know a lot of fans out there who want to go back to the likes of San Marino, Turkey as well. You know, those old tracks that were on the calendar. That, oh yes, we should be going to those kind of races as well. And I'm like, just pipe down and shut up, because we're not going there. End of story. We're going to Vietnam whether they like it or not. So sit down and shut up, as what I said to you guys. Those guys who think they know a lot about Formula 1, who, okay, let's go back to the Stone Age, let's go back to when Formula 1 was in 1950. Like, no, let's move forward. Let's forget about all that. Let's move forward. Let's try some new race. Let's make some new memories. Like, so in the next 20 years, if Vietnam does get dropped, we can go, oh yeah, we should be going back to Vietnam. Then they'll go, nah, shut up, we're going to bloody, think of a country on the spot.
North Korea.
Exactly, the North Korean Grand Prix. I couldn't think of any country. There's like millions of... Oh, I say millions. There's loads of countries in the world, and I couldn't think of one on the spot. Unbelievable. So obviously, Lyle, I'm hearing that you're a fan of this as well, but do you think that, is this for the future of Formula 1 as well? Do you think this is a good thing, going to Vietnam? Or do you think that this is like Formula 1 is dipping into some very, very bad water right now, and they should be going nowhere near Vietnam, because it does have a history with a couple of countries as well. Obviously with war and stuff as well. So obviously that that could plague a little bit as well. I'm not too sure about that. I don't know much about that myself. So do you think this is like risky? Obviously I know it is risky, but do you think that like Formula 1 should be doing this, or do you think we should be like stepping back a bit and going to more European countries as well, instead of going to like Asian races? Like, what do you think about that?
I think it's great. I think it's good for Formula 1, to see that they've been to a new country like that. It's a bit like you just being like a traveller, being a tourist. Just to say that you've been to a new country is really good. And obviously, yeah, you're right. You've had the South Korean Grand Prix. That's just been there for a season. The Indian Grand Prix, I actually really liked it. I thought that was here to stay. Now, even if Vietnam, it doesn't last the distance, even if it's only until like 2023 or something like that, it'll still be good to see that they've been there. Obviously, from an actual like government or tourist standpoint, again, just guessing, they'll like that, because it'll get a lot more people in. For example, obviously, I know for a fact that when I went to Singapore, and I found out that the race there is obviously one of the biggest events of the whole year. Really, obviously Singapore is the whole city is the country. So you think about that, obviously it takes up about a third of the country, a bit like Monaco, but it's basically they've seen a boom in the last 10 years, and you can really see that. And obviously, I imagine that'll be the same with Vietnam. Again, obviously, somewhere where you probably wouldn't want to go on holiday very much. Obviously, again, you'd only want to go there if you're like a traveller or something like that. So again, I think that's really good, that it's boosting their kind of economy like that. Again, for Formula 1, you can see that they've been there. It's just another race in Asia. The only thing I think about it is that it would be either at the start of it's rumoured to be April. It would be with the flyaway races. Obviously, in terms of time zones as well, obviously, a lot of teams find it hard to adapt to the time zones. Even the first race of the season, obviously they've got no race before that, but a lot of the teams are based in Europe, obviously based on GMT and BST, and obviously based in America as well, obviously where they're behind GMT, and even then to go to Australia and obviously adapt to where it's 10 hours ahead of GMT. I think Melbourne's either 10 or 11 hours, so again you have to adapt like that. Is it Japan to the USA? That's obviously that's a big gap for the teams as well. Obviously Japan's 7 hours ahead when obviously Austin's 5 hours behind. Things like that, and again obviously with Brazil or Abu Dhabi, I think Brazil's 3 hours behind when Abu Dhabi's 4 hours ahead. So it's like they've got to adapt like that. So with Vietnam, obviously, as long as they play the cards right and get it somewhere like around, I think it's after the Chinese Grand Prix or something like that, they might be able to adapt. But obviously, if they mix it in with Europe, it's just going to get actually hectic for the teams, because again, obviously, they're moving around, obviously, with logistics and stuff. Obviously, it does get a bit of a pain in that way. Obviously, as you were saying about Brazil and races like that, obviously, the British Grand Prix, obviously, never. I hate talking about that. I hate talking about that so much. It is going to be. It is going to be at Silverstone for sure. It's not going to go anywhere else unless they're going to build us like £1 billion new structure. All this talk about Boris Island Airport. In the south end of London.
Well, they are talking about the City of London Grand Prix, because obviously taking inspiration from another city, another street circuit as well, alongside Singapore. And obviously Monaco and Azerbaijan, obviously those tracks that came more recently, obviously Azerbaijan and in Singapore as well. So obviously going to having the streets around. So obviously, like maybe Vietnam could be an inspiration for the British racing organisations to be able to go forth and have a race.
See where they've got that idea. See where they've got that idea from, obviously from F1 Live and things like that. And obviously, as John said.
It worked.
It
would work.
But I mean, that would be really good. It was, John. I've got to say. I mean, obviously, I'd be really for that. Obviously, I go to uni in London, so that would just be on my doorstep. So it'd be really, really good.
Exactly. But even better.
But obviously, but still, no. Silverstone's definitely got to be there. I think just when you go to Silverstone, it's just got everything's there for Formula One. It's set up for Formula One. It's really crazy, like that. Obviously, Britain will be there. Races like Brazil. Maybe races like that might be seeing the end of their days. On the Formula One calendar. Obviously, you've got to have the really old races in, to make it a lot of like heritage in Formula One. But you might be seeing races like Brazil going. I know the United States one's popular, but you might even see ones like that go. The mid-level ones that have been in for about 10, 15. I know it's not been there 10, 15 years, but like mid-level kind of races. And things like that. Maybe even Australia. Even though obviously that means that there wouldn't be a race in Australia, which obviously would be quite detrimental for them, but things like that, and I just think it would be really good to go somewhere new and kind of get rid of the old race, but obviously not the oldest race like Monza and Spa, and definitely not the British Grand Prix. Obviously something can get worked out. There was talk about the Monza Grand Prix, the Italian Grand Prix, obviously going through some problems before, but obviously that got worked out. Obviously they'll get worked out, but I just think moving to a new country for Formula One, obviously it's just really, really good for them. It's just like being a tourist, really. You get to go to new places, and I think it's great for Formula One. And obviously, again, it just opens new people to watching Formula One cars. Obviously, like Vietnam and places like Thailand and Laos, places like around Vietnam who might not have watched Formula One before. They get to come over and watch Formula One on a street circuit. And obviously, a street circuit is. Well, I mean, obviously, I think they're really good. They look great. Obviously, I went to a street circuit, obviously on holiday. And I think they're really good, and I'm really excited to see what happens with this race. But obviously, there's a lot of work to do in terms of stands and attendance. And just one last thing, obviously, about Baku. When the Baku Grand Prix happened, obviously in 2016, it was quite slow, but it was the first race it was getting going. It was called the European Grand Prix back then, wasn't it? And it was just like. It was just getting going. A bit like also the 2014 Grand Prix in Sochi, the Russian Grand Prix. Obviously, of course, that was very much scarred after what happened in Japan, obviously a week beforehand. But that got a bit, that was like hard to get going. Again, I'd say Baku was hard to get going as well. Mainly Baku, as using an example. So, and then obviously, as John said, the next race, the next year was so lightning. It had better attendance, had better coverage. It was a better race. Obviously, one race of the year, like you said. So I think that Vietnam, definitely has the potential, and I'm really excited. And obviously, it is very soon. I hope they're working extensively to get it working like that. But I'm really excited to see what happens. And even if it only stays on the calendar for a few years, at least Formula One can say that they've been there. I think it's really good. And in terms of what race I think it would replace, I've never been a real fan of Baku, but I don't think they should get rid of that. I just think that Vietnam should slot in there, and I think maybe we should look at the races. I think maybe we should look at Brazil. I don't think that is actually the strongest race on the calendar anymore, but obviously it's down to what Formula 1 says. But it's definitely not going to be anything like the British Grand Prix, and it's probably not going to be any of the European Grand Prix either, because obviously F1 is big in Europe. But we say that though, obviously a lot of American fans, a lot of Asian fans, and a lot of African fans and Australian fans, obviously it's not on their time zones. I know they would disagree and say, well, if less European races and obviously Vietnam came on, it would be more popular in races like Australia, obviously, because it would be closer to their time zones. So we'll have to see what Formula 1 gets rid of, but obviously it won't be the British Grand Prix or anything famous like that.
On that subject though, like about obviously you talking about like those particular Grand Prix, about like, you know, could it be chopped and it could be changed? Obviously you're saying there that you're not a fan of Baku, but obviously you don't want it to go, you want it to slot in there and have five flyaway events. Trying to say that after a few, but on that subject as well, because obviously there's one of the big topics as well about that's been going on for about a couple of years. Not only with fans, obviously not so much with fans, because we want to see as many races as possible, but with teams and, you know, staff members, those who build the cars, those who travel the world, obviously to go from one race to the next, dismantle one garage and set up at the next within the space of 3 days. So do you think Formula 1 should be adding more races and extending the calendar to, let's say, 25 races, which is what Liberty Media have said that they want to do? Or should we just reduce the races and get rid of the dead wood, as like you said, maybe not so much like the old school races, but like maybe like the Bakus as well, and maybe like the Abu Dhabis as well, who obviously, yes, they are nice tracks and they have produced some really good Grand Prix, but they aren't necessarily needed in Formula 1 as well. Obviously it's just there for the rich heritage as well, about like what Vietnam is doing as well, about the rich heritage as well. A lot of money is coming from that country as well, so obviously hence why, you know, Formula 1 is probably going there as well. But do you think that, yes, should we get rid of all the dead wood that Formula 1 has, like what Cyril said from Renault, the team principal of Renault? He was saying that the races should be in between 15 to 18 races to make it more compatible for everyone who's travelling the world. So do you think Formula 1 should have more races or less races? What do you think?
I think that Formula 1 at the moment obviously is really, really busy. I think it is great, obviously, that, you know, that we'll go into all these destinations. It is very exciting as well. Obviously, there's not much challenge if, you know, Formula 1 cars just tackling a few races. Obviously, to tackle all these circuits, all these different elements as well. It is really testing, and it is really good to see. Now, obviously, you know, on a team's basis, obviously, yeah, it's very demanding traveling the world and that, you know, going to different races. You know, the only in the old days, about 10 years ago, whatever, I would have said, you know, that race like Japan and China and, you know, Canada, they were a bit more boring. Obviously, then it should just go to the European races. And again, obviously, it's easier on us, you know, in our time zones. But I do think that all the, you know, the flyaway and the hard and the difficult races around the world, I think they're just so exciting. I think it really is great to see. You know, if Vietnam came onto the calendar, which it is, you know, I do think that one or two races will have to go. But obviously that'll get worked out. And then again, also, you know, and one of the things that I was thinking about is like an alternating calendar. You know, where it's like one year is, you know, one year is like Mexico, 1 year is Brazil, and then it might be like 15 races, as you say, but then like some races will share years and things like that. So we're not feeling like we're going there every year. So for example, like let's say Vietnam, you know, it's on the 2020 calendar, then it's on the 2022 calendar, then the 2024 calendar, then the 27 calendar, then the 28 and the 2030. You know, it works like that, and it gives teams a rest, but obviously we're not saying goodbye to the circuit. And if that was the case, why don't we say, you know, hello again to Malaysia and India and South Korea and things like that? Because obviously, I know that's not the problem. Obviously, that it's about finding the space on the calendar. Obviously, it's also finding things like you know, money for the circuit, attendance. Obviously, for example, that was one of the big reasons why Malaysia went. But obviously, I think that would be a good thing. I just thought of that, you know, the alternating F1 calendar. But if anything was going to happen like that, I think it might be that, because I just do think that it is a great idea for Formula 1 to keep touring the world and going to like the new place that it is. I think it's really good. I mean, what do you think, Joe? Do you think it's right for F1 to do that, or do you think that they should like condense the races and not do too much travelling and focus more on the race and then like the logistics of going to another country?
Yeah, I think for staff members as well, they are like the unsung heroes of Formula 1, because they're not really in the public eye a lot. Obviously, they're like, well, as I said, the unsung heroes who set up all the garages as well, and obviously they've got to take them down very, very quickly after the race, pack everything up, ship it out off to the next race, and obviously that lack of sleep is on the plane. Obviously, it's not really comfy, being on the plane for some races it can be like 2 to 4 hours, but some races it can be like 12 to 16 hours, maybe even more, depending on where you're flying from. Yes, a lot of the teams are based in Europe, so I think Formula 1 should add more races around Europe, and obviously go off to start off in Asia as well, and obviously end in in North and South America as like what they do, because obviously you've got to work around time zone as well, because obviously you can't really come to Silverstone in December because it could be snowing, or you can't really go vice versa. You can't really go to Australia in July because it's their winter. So it's you've got to like try and play it around as well, and obviously try and find the right balance as well. But I think for me, pretty much like what the saying goes in football as well, 20 is plenty. Now, what I mean by that is that people, football fans who go on away games, nobody charge like 30 to 40 pounds, maybe even more to go to an away game. Now, the start of the campaign called 20 is plenty. Now, for me, that will work in Formula 1, not so much the price, but in terms of races as well, 20 is plenty. From a fan's point of view, yes, I want to see 25 races, I want to see 30 races, but for the staff, I don't want them that, because obviously they've got families and as well, and lives to live, instead of just being gutted in Formula 1 as well, because people think it's an easy job. I don't think it is. Obviously, I've never been in that environment, but I do not think it's an easy job to do, to be able to dismantle stuff that quick and set up towards the next race as well. And obviously, it's a lot of travelling as well. And obviously, this season we had a triple header of 3 races on the bounce. Obviously, they were quite close to each other, but that's still a hell of a lot of work. And obviously, Lyle, with yourself doing what you're doing at the camping, obviously you, for Belgium, you took down from one race, went straight to the other, and then you were saying to me, I was absolutely knackered after that. Obviously, that's what it's like with them, but they've got to do that all year round and travel even longer than what you have, obviously, in coaches, maybe in planes as well.
I think the thing that got me, John, obviously, when two examples. Obviously, when I went to Italy, then obviously I went to the race, but then I also went there on the Monday to do a bit of track touring. Thank you.
Yeah,
and that was really good to see. Obviously, went in the garage, but then everything was all gone. The signs were still up, the F1 thing on the, a few things were still there, yeah, but there was loads of cranes, everything was taken down. I remember seeing there was the F1 store was being dismantled and loads of things were on the floor. I remember just pointing and just saying to one of my colleagues, I was in the car, I remember just saying, I'm going to see that in Singapore. It's like, I'm going to see that in the next 2 weeks. And then also, on the flip side, when I was in Singapore, obviously, when the podium had literally just finished, we were on the circuit and we were walking about, and we were still, on the stuff in the straight, taking photos and things like that. Obviously, the music was playing and blah blah blah. But then, if you looked, if you looked in the pit wall, you could see they were taking down the garages. And obviously, I got a photo of the Red Bull garage, and obviously everyone's there. And you can't even see anything. Like in Daniel Ricciardo's is the one that's been gutted the first. And there's a few the backboards and obviously the Red Bull. I don't really know what to say, but there's things like the Red Bull, the carpets are still there, for example. I don't know, but everything else was taken down. The computers were taken down, the pit lane, that stick, that monitors the whatever. A lot of things. I know the terminology, but a lot of things are being taken down, and just shows how fast. The race wasn't even finished. The podium was 20 minutes ago, and they were taken down. Part of the Grand Prix. I thought it was absolutely crazy. So obviously, for doing that for Vietnam, yes, it would be big. If they linked it with something like the Chinese Grand Prix, obviously, which was it round 2? It would be round 2 or round 3 at that point, something like that. They always keep filling it around, or Bahrain or something like that. Around it, it might not be too bad, but obviously, yeah, it would be a lot of travelling. But from a Formula 1 side, like Jordan said, obviously, yeah, it would be absolutely fantastic to see. We want to see all the races and obviously all the countries we can go to. So obviously, let us know in the comment section below. Obviously, what you thought. What do you think Vietnam's a good idea? Where would you like to go in the world? Would you like to go to North Korea? Where would you like to have a race? Because obviously, the world is, you can go anywhere in the world. A New Zealand Grand Prix, obviously, I know that a lot of people have been saying that would be a good idea. Obviously, again, around the streets of Auckland. And then also, leading on to that, is a street circuit probably one of the only ways to go forward, obviously, because a lot of times you don't have, luscious fields where we can build a Formula 1 track like Vietnam's doing. It doesn't have the space, so it's, well, I don't really know, but they can't find anything and they don't want to build a new circuit, so they're setting one up in the street circuit. Obviously, is that the only way to go? Just let us know everything you think in the comment section below. Also, just let us know any topic you want to see. Obviously, like we said in the other episode, this is a debate show. We'll talk about anything Formula 1. So we hope you've enjoyed everything you've seen today. Leave us a comment, leave us a like if you've enjoyed this video. video. If you don't like this video, leave us a dislike if you want, but let us know why, obviously, so we can improve. And yeah, just work on it, obviously, because we want to work for you guys. And obviously, until the next episode, guys, we'll see you later.
See you later, guys. Thank you very much for watching.